You know security is hard, so let's assume we're probably gonna get pwned by noon. But if we all start to get the basics right, we might not fully get pwned until tonight. All right, we did it, I think. Well, that's okay. I'm in a bit of a COVID haze right now, so I've not been pushing a lot of the right buttons or saying a lot of the right things, Amanda. So please just be gentle with me today as we talk about mental health. Is that fair? You seem like a gentle person, like you wouldn't.
Just don't ask my kids that question.
Okay, same. Mine are gonna stay in the other room. I'll keep our opinions of our selves between ourselves.
Yes, everyone else would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, welcome, Amanda. And Amanda, why don't you folks who are watching may know you from, I don't know, podcasts like this one, but you also do a ton of stuff professionally and podcasty and those sorts of things. Do you want to give whatever level of intro you want to give to the folks at home?
Sure. Up like above what's on the screen here, I also podcast with Breaking Down Security. And we've been doing that for, oh gosh, I think I'm on year 8 maybe that I've been on that podcast.
Wow.
Which
From
is
the beginning? Is that how long it's been around?
crazy. No, they were doing it about 3 years before I started. So
okay.
It's been a podcast for a long time. And I just finished sending the my copy anyways of the second edition of my book, which makes me really super happy. The copy somewhere here, Defensive Security Handbook, which second edition should be out soon.
Oh, that's awesome. And you can get that at what, Amazon and all the places?
Oh yeah, all the places. I've yet to find it in an actual bookstore yet, which makes me sad, but
okay.
That's okay. One of these days. And I do a whole bunch of other stuff. So the one thing that I guess we'll be talking about today is the mental health version of the things that I do.
And I'm really excited for this. I'm glad we were able to time it now, because I think folks who see this are, especially IT and security people, they're right at the end of what could have been a very, very stressful Q4. I know for me as a security consultancy, and also trying to take a little time off for myself at the end of the year, it was you just burn the candle at both ends to get all the things done and get the clients happy, and everybody who needs something by 12/31, you're trying to get that to them. And then my wife and I did take, let me see if I can get this rolled in here. We took a little vacation. We went to Arizona.
Oh, nice.
Let me see if I can. I thought I put this up here so that I could show you. It was kind of a how it started, how it ended thing. So I went and did some indoor skydiving with a very popular instructor who teaches like people from all over the world. It was kind of the equivalent of like a black belt, kung fu master.
Sure.
Teaching like the white belt class, like here's how you make a fist to punch. It was kind of that, I'm sure, for him, but he was awesome. And he let me see if this will play. Oh yeah, I think it will. I'm going to turn the sound down. But let me bring in this for a second. Okay, so check this out. He let me do front flips, which was amazing, which is like, it's above, I'm shooting whatever you call it, above your pay grade or whatever. Like that's kind of, he sort of let me cheat and go, into the next class of, skills or whatever. So that was awesome. And then I was, kind of riding the high from that. And then my wife and I got home, and then we both promptly got double COVID sauce. So I've been really good with the mute button the last couple of days, trying not to just blow people's eardrums out with coughing. But yeah, on that note, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a perfect time to talk about mental health, because a lot of us are coming off of a very stressful time and or still riding high pressures from job to, this is the time you patch all the things, right? And you do like those upgrades because people are gone. And I know a lot of people in my network that are just burnt out. So
tired.
It's a good time to be talking about this.
Yeah. And like me talking about mental health kind of started with talking about burnout. Because it was,
Yeah.
I mean, it started to be a really, really popular topic that I heard of anyways, uh, around the time that I started talking about mental health in general. And it's, I don't know if it's getting any better. I hope it is.
Yeah, that was gonna be one of my questions. I don't know where I suppose it all depends on who do you ask as far as
Right.
getting better.
Yeah. Just slowly telling people that, giving tips to make it better over time.
Yeah. Well, I'm anxious to take it away. I'm anxious to hear all of it. I think we all are.
Sure, sure. All right, let's get started here. So originally when I was giving this talk, well, a different talk with this slide in it, I had actually like the Under Pressure song playing, which made me really happy.
Well, for sure. That's exactly what comes
Right?
to mind when I
Yeah, as soon as you see that, that's what comes to mind is that song. Um, but I don't have that music now. But so we're just gonna let everybody pretend I have it in their heads.
we'd probably get like a YouTube strike or something like
Yeah,
that.
probably.
I
Yeah.
typed it in at this point, so I
Yeah.
won't touch it either.
So yeah, I mean, I've been talking about mental health stuff now for like 6 to 7 years in the community. It started out in 2017. I had kind of been giving talks about tech related things. So I was like running phishing campaigns and doing user education and doing all this kind of stuff back then. And B-Sides Nashville asked me to give my first keynote ever, and I wanted to do something that was beneficial for everybody that would come watch, not just like blue teamers, red teamers, or whomever. And that's when it just kind of first clicked for me for something to talk about because I had been talking about my own personal struggles on like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. And I turned that talk into talking about like when I first realized that I had like mental health issues. I covered a bunch of different symptoms and medical research reading that I did, coping strategies, all of that kind of stuff, and I titled it "Hackers, Hugs, and Drugs: Mental Health and InfoSec."
Hmm.
And I found a lot of really interesting stuff, like one was the Savannah IQ interaction hypothesis, which made this correlation between people with high IQs and higher depression rates, which,
Interesting.
if you think about a lot, I mean, the majority of people in our field, everybody's so super smart.
Yeah.
And it was like all of this research around like um, grad students and professors and all of this kind of stuff. So really super interesting. They talked about higher rates of self medication and less common for those people to go get help. All of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And during that first talk, a bunch of my friends were in the audience and my oldest son was in the audience, and he came down to me afterwards and he's like, "Wow, mom, that was a real downer of a talk." And because there was like one slide that I just could not make it through without crying. And so like I ended the whole talk with like pictures of puppies and stuff because I just didn't want to end it like really,
Yeah.
really sad and depressing.
Yeah.
And like when you think about it, like it is kind of depressing, but it's real eye-opening when I started to give those things and it started to resonate with more people than I thought it ever would.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would be talking about it today and continuously, right? But
Yeah.
I think more people are talking about it now, right? Like I've been on so many different podcasts and been interviewed by so many places, and just it's way more common of a thing now to talk about,
Yeah.
whereas like I talked to my mom when I first started doing this stuff, and she talked about her mom that had like shock treatments for hysteria. And that wasn't that long ago if you think about it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's crazy how like how far we've made it in that space.
Yeah, and I'm really glad for that. When I really got into security about 10 years ago, I feel like it was a little bit more, and maybe you feel kind of isolated or in an incubator when you're first really getting your fire for security, and it's like I'm going to learn everything and stay up all night and all this kind of stuff, and you're just
Yeah.
like everybody that's out there, these rock stars of infosec, they seem to have unlimited energy. Their lives are crushing it. You know what I mean? It's just like you gotta get into that, like,
Yes.
look at them. They're doing awesome. But like you said, that then when you hear some talks from those really smart people or innovators or whatever, right? It'll be like, oh, you read on their Wikipedia page or whatever. It's like, oh, they're just like everybody else. They have
Yeah.
wrestled with depression and anxiety and dealt with catastrophic loss and all this kind of stuff. And I just feel like, yeah, the more we talk about it, the better. And just to a point of your talk, same thing for me with on the podcast. I was really transparent with when we had that house fire and just kind of talking through like everything. And like I said, like you said, I never thought it would connect with so many people and that you get so much feedback where people are like, wow,
Wow.
I feel like, I went through something, maybe not the exact same thing, but I feel so like, oh, you know what that level of loss feels like. And now I don't feel like such a stranger or
Mhm.
that I'm, weak or whatever. And I think like I maybe shared with you before, I grew up in a household that was a little bit more like, you just gotta get yourself,
Suck
up.
it up.
Yeah, a little bit, right? And I do like that does, I think overall that perspective seems to change, at least as I think see how they approach it at schools and that kind of stuff too, where it's much more like, hey, we're here, our doors are open, right? Whatever's going on, talk to us, just talk to us because
Yep.
you will feel better. I think it just gets you know, a situation just worsens for people when they do feel like that insulation and isolation and that they can't.
Yeah, that's why I like coming on places like this, because a lot of times, like, your average listener or watcher or whatever, uh, is just in the habit of watching the same thing and, like, all tech-related stuff, and then they come to a platform and they're like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting this," and you may get a different audience.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I always enjoy that part, whether, everybody enjoys it or not, I don't know.
right.
It
No, I
seems to have
think it's
helped.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So we'll cover some challenges, some normal challenges that I've had people talk about. So let's see if these sound familiar to anybody. So like the responsibility of success. You have this pressure of being responsible and accountable for your company, right? You can include the success of the business, both former and current employees, your customers and clients that you serve. We all want our businesses to be a success, and a lot of us are the kind of people that end up taking a lot of personal care and interest to make sure that happens, right? So I know that anytime I've been in a position where there's like even the slightest hint of a struggle, I do my best to just not automatically think, "What am I doing wrong?"
Yeah.
Right? Because that's like first thing I do is like, "All right, not everything's going 100% how I thought. What did I do wrong? It must be me."
Yeah.
And that should not be the first thought on our minds.
Right. Yep, I can 100% relate to that, and that's been a little
Yeah.
bit just into my brain wiring since age 0 kind of, is just something's
Yes.
going south. I'm really, really good actually being like, "Oh, yeah, I can see how that's my fault." You
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah. I could tie everything back to
Right,
me.
and everybody's like, "Oh, hold on, guy. No, we're just saying this thing over here didn't go the way we thought it would." And I'm like,
Right,
"Well,
right.
I'd like to apologize on behalf of that." That's like, "You weren't even there," you know? Oh,
Yeah,
that's still a challenge. I've gotten better, but
right.
it's real. Yeah.
Yeah. And secondly, we have these expectations to be bulletproof, and like fully committed and available at all times. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
this expectation might only be internal and not actually what's expected of you.
Yeah.
Right. This
Yeah.
is very rarely are any of us specifically always told you have to be 100% available and bulletproof, right? No
Yeah.
matter if it's a startup, a Fortune, 5 company, whatever, people take it as some kind of messed up badge of honor at the amount of work and commitment you put into a job,
Yeah.
right?
I love that you use badge of honor because that is
Right?
something when I've been through, started, yeah, several years, probably after the fire, started actually seeing like a therapist and have loved that, right? And that is one thing that they identified where they're just like, yeah, you kinda tend to, wear the whole like, "Well, I'm working, 24/7, I'm keeping away the
Yes.
bad guys," and I'm whatever, and they're like,
Yes.
they kinda called me out on it a little bit where it's like you're sort of look puffing your chest about it, even though you don't think you're communicating it that way, you're sort of tying it to like Yeah, look at me.
Yeah.
I'm saving the day. Yeah, I gotta be bulletproof when
Oh, yeah. I was asked it once on a podcast for the first time, like, a year or 2 ago, and it, like, stopped me in my tracks. It was a question, "How do you work to not use overworking as a badge of honor?" When somebody asks you, "So, how are you doing lately?" And my answer is always, "Oh, busy as always," or running around like crazy, or,
Yeah,
it's just this automatic thing that you're wiring yourself to respond with.
yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah, which just stresses everybody out, right?
exactly, and it kinda breaks you when all of a sudden you realize, like, maybe you shouldn't be proud of that, or it gets your mind spinning on maybe there's things you should do to restore balance to a little bit more
Right.
life in your work balance. So, yeah, I kinda don't like to be asked that sometimes. I
Same.
just go to the general like, "Yeah, pretty good." I
Good.
keep the
Great.
Yeah, I keep the busy description just sort of out of it, so I don't kinda get my mind going unproductively.
Right. And then next up we have the A game. So
Yeah,
whether you're a leader or a public face of the company, whatever, sometimes you think you have to show your A game and be successful in everything you do. Right? You
yeah,
don't have time to fail. You've risen to the ranks and gotten to where you are because of all of these combinations of motivation and work and talent and all of the, whether it's to the detriment of your own health and personal life or whatever.
right.
Um, it's it's just this idea that we always have to be on our A game. And some of the best conversations and things that I've read or written or whatever have been, this is how I messed up. And this is, I was either in this headspace or whatever. And it's people being real
Yeah,
about the struggles that they've had, because everyone has them. You can't just crank out constant, like, "I'm amazing, I'm amazing, I'm amazing,"
right.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and expect that not to be internalized, right?
For sure. We've done a, on our I don't look too much at stats, but I get sent reports about, uh, our podcast, listens and stuff,
Right.
and the most popular series is about Tales of Pen Test Pwnage, so it's like times we were successful in doing pen testing, and then a number of years ago, like, started getting into the headspace of, like, I should really do even though this really feels yucky because, I don't want, like, some business to not wanna do business with us because we maybe didn't totally hashtag win all the time,
Right.
but then started a series of tales of pen test fail, and just like with the house fire stuff, that's been probably the most, like, active feedback episode ones where people are like, "Thanks so much, like, I've been pen testing for a long time, but I totally screwed this one thing up last week, and I just didn't I could hardly live with myself," and, you just gotta throw it out there
Yeah.
for the world to see, and again, I go like, I call them the smart business people that kind of tell us, give us ideas on business stuff. That makes their toenails curl. The whole like admitting weakness, admitting screw ups, and then making a podcast about it when your whole like kind of underlying theme is to get more business. And
Yeah.
but I still maintain, I still feel 100% okay that like that is going to serve way more good. Like if there really is a prospect that comes across the wire and goes, what? They make mistakes, not doing business with them. That's a good thing. We don't want I don't wanna work with someone who expects,
Yeah. Like,
perfection, who is perfect. Yeah.
right, and looking at it from that perspective, wouldn't you want somebody that's honest about it?
Yeah, right.
Right? As opposed to somebody that's like, "Oh, no, I got everything 100% on your network." Like, I
Exactly.
I I know for sure.
Right. I would hope like long term slash big picture, it just helps people go like, "Oh, cool, like they're real. I wanna do business with a group that's transparent like this because 'cause they'll be
Yep.
transparent with us about yeah, they'll in partnering with them, they'll be transparent about the good
Yeah.
and the bad, and that will be a more meaningful relationship, I
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah, and internally, the best piece of advice I've gotten as far as, like, leadership advice is that you let your people on your team know that there's a certain expectation of failure, right? So
Oh,
not like
yeah,
in a negative way, like, not, "I'm expecting you to fail," but just that
yeah,
if there's a certain expectation that failure is imminent no matter what, because, we're all human, it
yeah,
takes pressure off of you. to like always perform.
Yeah. Yeah. I like
So I try and do that. We have this thing at work called the donut award, where if you mess up and you just claim it in Slack, you get sent donuts.
Oh, wow, I like that.
Yeah.
But then are people intentionally messing stuff up and immediately correcting it, being like, "Oh, whoops,
No, no, it
player."
rarely happens, surprisingly. I think
Okay,
people forget about it, but
okay,
yeah.
yeah. I just thought, will there be the one guy who's just like every Friday, like, "Whoops,
Getting
no,
donuts,
oh,
yeah,
whoopsie daisy, fix it." Like, I guess, if you guys are I like, Long Johns with sprinkles. Thank you so much.
right? Alright, and
Oh,
then
and I was just gonna say there are some, messages coming through chat,
oh,
and, there's someone who's saying hello to you, and Tim says, "These discussions are hitting way too close to home." Frowny face. Well, Tim, I
sorry
hope
about that.
ultimately in a good way, I hope, right? Like, I hope that's what we want out of this, right, Amanda's for
Yeah,
people to just feel so, like, seen and heard kind of
yeah,
with
for
some
sure.
of the things we're talking about.
And then the fourth thing is, reputation and credibility. So,
Mm,
that's like the perceived impact, and not always perceived, because if you think about, like, previous, breaches and everything we see on the news, we see this stuff kind of happen. Um, and you just think, like, is this it's the CISO's problem or the SOC manager or the network ad, like, they're having a really bad day, right?
yeah,
But I'm sure in their minds is like, how could I have let this happen? I've let down the whole company, I've let down our investors, our customers, everyone. But that's not but like that's not how you should look at it if that's you in that position, or if you're
yeah,
thinking about other people too, right?
yeah,
I always try and think of it like, I if that was my best friend in that position and they just happened to be there, and I'm sure they're like running around like crazy trying to do everything correctly
yeah,
and waiting for it to be judged.
yeah,
Um, how would I treat that person? Right?
oh, yeah, yeah,
I I always found it hard. I always I still am harder on myself than I am anybody else, right? And I'm sure a lot of us are.
totally.
Just give yourself some slack, right? Like, it's not going very I'll without looking at Google, tell me the name of literally anybody that has been at fault for a breach in the last 10 years, right? Like, sure,
Right.
you might be able to dig and find it on Google or whatever, but
Yeah,
I'm sure they are happy and healthy and, working in other tech careers or something.
right.
Whatever makes them
I
happy.
I
At least we
remember
hope so.
when I think, well, let's see, was the Target one, was that right around, like, 2012, 2013? I feel like it was, like,
Mhm.
near my first security job, and I felt like at that time, unfortunately, some of the leaders I had worked with at the time were a little bit more point the finger, "I can't believe they did that," right? Like,
Sure.
"What a bunch of idiots," this kinda stuff, and then now, I guess good/bad news is, like, it does happen so much. I feel like maybe there's a bit more, like, overall forgiveness where the security community especially, now jumps on people who do the finger pointing where they're just like, "Listen, you are right, you are one bad password, you are one bad misconfig away. Don't throw rocks in glass houses," like,
Yeah.
that kinda thing, so
Right.
I feel like that's I don't like that security incidents are happening, but I would hope just as a whole, as a community, we kind of go like, yeah, that could be us. Or like you said, what if that's my good friend, my colleague, and their company gets owned tomorrow? Like, am I really going to just be like boil it
Uh-uh.
down to a simple you messed up?
Right.
When
It's never that easy.
no, it's no, no,
No. So with all of those challenges, factors, whatever at play, I did find so Oracle put out a really good study, and they found that the C-suite is likely to be depressed at double the rate of the general population,
oh my goodness,
which mind blowing, right? So that's why I like this GIF, because it shows how fast Obama aged when he was president, which because that's probably arguably one of the most stressful jobs in the world, right?
I can't even imagine.
Um, and another part of that Oracle study, so it was the workplace intelligence study in 2020. So they surveyed 12,000 people across 11 countries, and found that 53% of C-suite struggle with mental health compared to 45% of employees. So still not great numbers.
No.
But like we feel pressured to hide it, right? Like we don't want to show people that we have anxiety or depression or other issues that we're struggling with, right? Because
Right.
we'll be seen as weak, or you're not fit to manage, or you're not fit to work, or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
what can we do about it? So I never thought I'd be talking about this stuff all the time, right? Because I mean, I didn't start out. I usually start out saying this, but I'm not a mental health expert.
Same.
That is
Absolutely.
not. I mean, I have a whole bookshelf of psychology books just because I find it very very interesting. But
Mhm.
I only have a 2-year degree in help desk, so
Yeah.
you cannot count me as any kind of mental health expert. Um, that was a long time ago, though. But sure, like mental health stuff's, part of my life, but it was always like just noise that I kind of just dealt with, like background noise on my own, or didn't deal with for a long time and just ignored and shoved, down deep inside.
Yeah.
But now people come up to me at conference. I've never had so many people cry on my shoulder that I don't know in my entire life. And they're just like stories that break my heart. And I just feel super honored that people share this kind of stuff with me all the time. Um, but that being said, like I like sharing things that we can change with our companies and with ourselves, and just from stories that I've taken from people and things that I've learned and companies that I've seen change. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that there's just a lot of information out there that you can use to help. So first off, I just want to say that you matter. Everybody watching this, Brian, you matter. Anybody that's going to listen along, because you're the only person that can be you. We have over, was it 7 billion people on the planet?
Sounds right.
And you're the only person that can be you. You face different challenges every day, you gain different experiences, and it shaped you into who you are today. You have physical health, you have mental health. It's emotional health. It just like everybody else, right? Just because you have like a broken arm doesn't mean you're less of a person. And your brain is a physical part of your body that has physical chemical reactions. And it's just like this magical gray blob surging with electricity.
I like that description.
Of course, we're going to have issues. It's just doing its thing up there. So
Yeah.
you don't really have a lot of control over that.
Yeah. That sounds like if somebody went into Midjourney and tried to get it
Yeah.
to draw a picture, magical gray blob. What was it? Surging with electricity?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
awesome. I'm going to type that in after we're done. And
And it will come up with the human brain. Right.
right. Yeah. That's
Uh,
awesome.
and when I started in this field, I was so amazed at the short amount of time people would work at a job. Right. It was amazing to me because growing up, I was always, being the daughter of I think my mom's a boomer. Maybe she's Gen X. I don't know. You have to stay at a place, right? You have to show your worth. And if you
Yeah.
job hop, they're going to find that like you can't commit, right? So
Yep.
you don't job hop, right? You have to
Right.
stay at a place, even if you're not happy or whatever.
Yeah.
And I got to tech and I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone job hops. Like you're here a year, you're here 6 months, you're here
Yeah.
a year and a half. It's very, very, very common. And I think a lot of that is because just this pressure to perform
Yeah.
and toxic working environments
Yep.
and overworking and burning out. And it's just, not great. I do think it is getting a little bit better though.
Yeah. Don't you
Um,
wonder how many people, if you could get some stats on like the hopping, how many of
yeah,
those hops were just like they just needed a freaking break and they needed
right.
somebody to like
Yeah,
unload some things off their shoulders, and maybe they needed a little counseling themselves too about maybe
sure.
they some of those earlier slides, right? Too much
Yeah,
pressure on myself. I got to be bulletproof. I got to be perfect, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. Um, Yeah. So, and then the second thing, well, I guess I didn't listen to anything that you can do for that. But, you know, trying to understand that if you're frustrated or stuck on something, or letting your team do this is just go walk away, take a nap, go watch a
Yeah.
Netflix episode,
Yeah.
whatever works for you to like go de-stress. You don't have to feel like you are chained to your desk and always, like, going back to some of those first points, always expected to be on.
Yeah. Yep. And I remember hearing, and still hear sometime too, though, the um people say kind of that nice digestible, like, hey, it'll all the same amount of work, it'll all be here in the morning, kind of thing. I used to just hate when people say that to me, and I would kind of just be like, if I dig deep, if I can get like these 8 things done, I know I'll feel that, like, good, I can disconnect now and go to the rest of the night. But like, I never get there. Like,
Right.
any day, I
Trap.
rarely. Right. So it's almost like I have to just be like, maybe I'm gonna have that feeling of, oh, I could have done a little more, maybe answered a few more emails that came in late in the afternoon. But like, it's just this thing, this itch I can never quite scratch. And so I've had to just try it some nights to be like, nope, I'm just gonna set a time, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna commit to that. Beginning of the day, I'm gonna be like, I'm done at 5:30 or whatever, and be like,
Yep.
walk away. But for many of us, like here, I'm just, living room's right there. It's very easy to just kind of waltz in here and, well, it's 8 p.m. Let me just kind of
Yep.
get back in the mood again. So it's hard. It takes a lot of self-control.
Oh yeah. And practice.
Practice, yeah.
Lots of practice. All right. And then the second thing you could do is build a support network. That's kind of why we created Mental Health Hackers, is because it's like peer support. Peer support works. And one of the main factors that prevents people from seeking help is the stigma surrounding it, right? So
Mhm.
if you don't have a good peer group, it can be really, really lonely. There's another study that showed that 2/3 of leadership struggles with isolation issues, right?
Mm.
They feel like they're the only one and they can't talk to anybody else about it. I had a good friend of mine is like, he was a starter of a startup that went really, really successful. He's not there anymore, but he just had no one to talk to. It's like, I'm trying to influence culture. I'm trying to do all of this kind of stuff, but he felt very alone when
Sure.
trying to do all of that stuff, right? So trying to find, you know, family, friends, what are great. Also finding other colleagues that are in the same space as you, so you can kind of talk about the same kind of things. You can, relate to challenges, provide feedback, give advice. We do this thing at work where we have like this accountability team where we go through our goals and we set, accountability goals and all, and get feedback and talk to each other about this kind of stuff. You can do all of those kind of things, but having that kind of network really, really helps.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then finally, this is the hardest one, is practicing what you preach. So changes usually have to start at the top, right? If you have a bad culture and a culture of overworking, and you have people that are getting burnt out and poor, just poor communication and grumpy people and just totally like, starting from the top usually helps, right? Which
Yeah.
are sometimes some of the hardest roles to start that change, because all of those things that we talked about in the beginning, people think that you can't show weakness, right?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And again, like, it doesn't always work out. You can't just, start crying in meetings and, using it as a therapy session and expect everything to go well. You kind of have to strategically bring some of that stuff into play. And a lot of times you can do that through HR or whatever, but having the power at a higher level can really help. There's so the American Psychological Association, has this workplacehealth.org, I think it is, that
Hmm.
goes into all of these things that you can use. Actually, it might be in a later slide. All of these things that you can use to help influence and start those things in an organization. All right, and then next up is being the change. You know, changing your day to day is one thing, and trying to impact the things around you. But then there are the things you can try and do internally yourself, right? Change can also start from within and in little tiny bits, right?
Yeah.
So I love Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
You
Big
know,
fan.
growing up as a kid in the 80s, 90s, you know, watch Mr. Rogers all the time.
Mhm.
And kindness can go a long way. Um, and those are key values that I think that should be in the workplace that aren't always, sadly. Um, and kindness and compassion go a long way for making sure people feel comfortable and feel that they can communicate open and honestly. One of the things that I love at Blumira is our values. So we have 5 values. It's balance, trust, communication, high bar, and no assholes.
Oh, I like the
And
last one.
I hope we keep that for forever because I use the no assholes one all the time.
Yeah.
um, because like you don't have to necessarily call it out like we do. You could be a little bit more PC about it.
Yeah.
But just thinking about using the words kindness, compassion, empathy, whatever, it's really worth it having those as like a primary focus.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I see the no a-hole thing on so many, you join a new Slack or a Discord or something, right? That seems to be a big
Yeah,
thing. In fact, I think our Slack rules might say the same thing too, where it's
it's in our job
like,
postings.
"Oh, that's awesome," right? We want you to kinda do these things, but also, don't
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't be a
You can't.
freaking jerk. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Because another thing that tech seems to um, be associated with, or that I've seen in my career after so many years, is just narcissistic people,
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
right? Uh, so trying to weed those out can be a struggle, but yeah, definitely worth pointing out for sure.
Yeah, and I know you go to a ton more, conferences, you're kinda out there, more than I am, but would you say if you just had to guess, just purely based on field, do you think kinda that stereotypical, like, infosec, rock star that's got all the answers and is a gatekeeper to knowledge, to their company's position, all that kinda stuff, do you feel like that stereotype person out there is, um, kinda, whatever, not aging out, but, kinda like, not so much the norm, or are they getting called to the carpet more at like, whatever,
I think
conferences or social situations where it's just like, "Hey, you can't, you know, I'm not gonna allow you to be like that in this situation," or, or are they a little quieter now because they know they can't just be
I think a
themselves
little of
all
both.
the time? Okay,
I
okay,
think a little of both.
okay.
If anybody's unfamiliar, just look up the lawsuits around DEF CON.
Oh, okay, okay, I think I know what you're talking about. Okay,
Yeah. So it's biting people more than it used to,
okay.
right? It used to be like good old boys club where people would go out and drink and go to strip joints and stuff. And like what's the HBO has the Don Draper. What show is that?
Mad Men, where
Mad Men, right.
they're always they're day drinking and they
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
never at
Like
work, they're out.
that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking
Right.
for, this very toxic
Yeah. Yeah,
work environment.
right.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of just some people realizing that their own behavior was not great,
Okay.
and others just being called out on it or
Okay.
sued. I don't know.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, yep.
yeah. So next would be, oops, too many. Giving your team flexibility. So if you want to invest in in mental health in your workplace, but you're not sure where to start, just give people options. So again, if you have like control over this, We get a monthly stipend. I think it's like 50, $100 every month or something like that, that is designated to go towards something mental health related, right? You could
Oh,
use on a meditation app, you could use it on therapy, you could use it for M&Ms. I don't know, like whatever makes you
yeah,
happy at the end
yeah,
of the day.
awesome.
Yeah, it's just like an easy way to kind of start out with just the expectation that you're allowed to have something set aside for mental health reasons, right?
Yeah,
Um, Next up is offering education. So, we're all about education in this space, anyways, and it helps change perceptions, stigma around mental health. And you can invest in educating staff at all different levels, right? One of those educations that I like to recommend that I've been to is mental health first aid.
oh,
So, this actually started out in Australia and that's all over the place now. If you look it up, they have sometimes there are free classes, like subsidized by grants or whatever. Other times you have to have some kind of fee, but they're all over the place. You can go, it's like an 8-hour class. It's kind of like going and taking a CPR class. You're not going to walk out of a CPR class knowing how to, you know, do open heart surgery,
right.
right? But you're gonna walk out of CPR knowing, "Oh my gosh, I could probably save that person's life until a real medical professional shows up,"
Yeah,
right? It's
right.
kind of the same thing. You're going there to recognize when people are in distress and coping strategies and other things that you could do to help, right?
Sweet.
Which is great. Like everybody that's on our board has taken it so far, and it's just very very helpful. They go into how, most people that are in mental health crisis don't seek out help on their own, right? And how to kind of navigate some of those things depending on the person and the situation you're in. A lot of
Yeah,
people won't go get help because, like, maybe it's a cultural or a religious or uh, how you were raised or whatever kind of stigma that makes them not seek out help. But they give a great workbook. They have you do all of these hands-on activities and stuff like that. So it's really, really super cool.
excellent.
Um, Another thing is over communicating. I read a bunch of stuff around a lot of these studies actually identified that employees aren't taking advantage of the benefits of mental health related things at their company because they had no idea they existed.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember, so I used to work for a hospital and it amazed me because, like, I don't know, I'm always been very studious and always show up for everything, but it always amazed me that our rate of participation in, like, our all team meetings, which they had, like, 7 or 8 possible things, and they had offsites, and they had things you could watch. Our participation rate was only, like, 70%. It's like, where are the rest of the 30% of the
Where are
people?
these
Like,
people?
you're missing out on so much information if you don't show up to these things. It's hard to get information out,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's meetings or a newsletter or people communicate a bunch of different ways. Uh, you have to work really, really hard at this over communication to let people know that you're actually offering things.
Oh, yeah. That's a great thing just in I mean, in general, in any of your work, right? Like,
Right.
I've never had it like, especially well, I just think of selfishly, I think of our work with the pen testing, right? Where it's just like, here's another update to the Discord. We are
Yeah.
now, scanning the network. We are now blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's like, because on the other side of it, all it can take, right, is one under communication, right? And then all of a sudden you're kind of on fire. It's like, oh, I forgot to tell you that I was also going to test this and it rebooted
Yes.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But just kind of a good life rule, I think,
Very
just to be
true.
more successful and mentally healthy is to
My next talk will be just life lessons with Amanda.
okay. Oh, nice. Well, yeah, well, you have to come back then. We'd love to hear that one when it's baked.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna switch to just being a life coach.
Okay.
Um, Another thing you can do is bring in professionals. So there's a couple different places that bring in actual psychologists and psychiatrists on the company's dime. They bring in life coaches. Speaking of life coaches, there's like town hall meetings or mental fitness training programs, and there's a whole bunch of different services that you can use that can help, that you don't have to like just create on your own. And then just like, well, first off, this picture, I tweeted this out a couple of years ago and it made so many people angry. For those of you that have never soldered before, you don't hold that part.
Were people
And
angry because what did they take it as
they
if,
thought I was legitimately holding it like that.
oh my gosh. Oh, people just, I think, need to relax in general.
Hilarious. Hilarious. Yeah, so that's the professional side. And then you also want a clear picture of success. So just like with any other um, program that we have, right? You have to track if it's successful or not. You know, sometimes it's really difficult to measure success if you don't start tracking it first. So like, what is the evidence that your program's actually effective in like preventing burnout, right?
Yeah.
So you can track employee satisfaction scores or productivity as a whole, turnover rate, right? There's a lot of different things that you can track prior to starting a program just to see if you're making any progress.
I bet that's a big missing piece for a lot of organizations too. I mean, I
Yeah.
bet they think like kind of, yeah, we've got all these offerings. Like if people aren't taking advantage of it, right? That's their problem, right? It's out there.
Right.
We've checked the box, kind of like some security compliance stuff.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah, for
offered
sure.
these mental health services, so we're good, right? But
Yeah.
it's,
Look
yeah,
at us. We're amazing. We're offering all of this stuff, but you know, if nobody's using it or
right. The
benefiting
whole
it. Yeah.
measuring piece is
Right.
missing big time.
Right. There's a couple examples. So here's a handful of them. So Bell Let's Talk Day, so that's a telephone company in Canada. They actually had like Ellen DeGeneres like tweeting out about their stuff. They donated over $7 million to mental health,
Sweet.
which is amazing. They have like a community fund, conversation guides, and cool toolkits. Deloitte has their own chief well-being officer, and
Hmm.
this is all stuff that happened prior to COVID, which is great. A lot of people started this stuff up after or during COVID because of the huge shift to work from home and all of the other issues that came along with quarantining constantly.
Yeah.
But Deloitte did theirs in 2015. EY has a Better You program, which focuses on like, they let you do like 24/7 counseling support, backup care, counseling sessions by phone, that kind of stuff. Akamai has a corporate wellness program that does a whole bunch of things. Yeah, so they do some pretty great stuff. And other places that kind of stepped up around the time of COVID. I mean, we started our company around then, so that's why we're on there.
Yeah.
But like, what are some examples here? Culligan did one-on-one health coaching for employees and their spouses, weekly well-being communications, resiliency and stress management activities. I already mentioned some of the things that we did. We also do we had a shutdown that I mentioned kind of before we started recording. 2 times a year, we'll shut down for a week.
Yeah, see, seems like more companies are doing that since COVID, where it's just like, doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you took the week of Christmas or whatever it is off,
Yep.
like we're just off,
Yep.
which I think is amazing.
Yeah. That's always super helpful. And other stuff, you know, there's just a lot of really, really good positive examples out there. Oh yeah, this is the one that I was talking about before. So workplacementalhealth.org.
Mm, okay.
They have so much information out there. Bunch of stats. They have different resources. Like they even go to the lengths of telling you what billing codes that your health insurance need to have enabled for you to have different mental health related things listed and like covered.
Oh,
They
Oh,
go really, really deep into all the weeds of actually implementing a really good program. So
nice.
send that to your HR people.
Yeah.
It can be really super helpful. And then I don't know. I don't think the video will. Oh, video no longer exists, so ignore
Oh,
that. But these are just examples that I love because there's just some really, really positive people out there on the internet, and I'm always super happy to be, involved with them and friends with them. There's just like daily affirmations and people just
yeah.
tweeting about how happy they are that you're alive and hoping that you had a good day. And BSD Bandit actually has, I don't, so I've not been on Twitter as often or anything lately, but he used to do like these daily, just like he's very, very upbeat. If you watch any of his videos, he's just great to watch, and just always very, very happy.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good pick me up. I think that is it. Yeah, so that's me. Other stuff that I do, train, write, podcast, all that stuff. And yeah, it's, thanks for
Over.
having me on. I love talking about this stuff with people. So just, have people go out and support others and help them through, all the stuff that we're always going through.
Well, thanks a million, Amanda. This has been super helpful and encouraging. And I don't want to put you on the spot. I wanted to know though, maybe as a last thing, like, do you have a favorite? And you probably got lots of them, but like just sort of like a general fight against the anxiety, maybe give yourself a positivity boost,
Sure.
thing or app or something that you like. I'll share mine so you have a minute to think. And this is new to me as of like this year. It's something that like I get, and I don't know BSD Bandit or I mean I know some of the folks you showed in that screen, but I kind of get, I'm a little bit of the person that like, when you have that person around the office, right? That's like every day is an opportunity. That person. I kind of want to put them in a chokehold, but it's again, it's not like a personal thing. I know, like they probably sincerely mean it from the bottom of their heart, but for some reason, my inner slight pessimist is just like, all right, like give it a break. But the tip that I've heard for a long time that I finally started using right about the time I got COVID 4 days ago was a tip to like either write down in a just on your own notes app or say out loud privately or whatever, but just go through kind of this freestyle list of, and they can be really basic things, but things that you're thankful for, kind of acknowledging them and giving them some you know uh keyboard juice or saying it out loud. So I mean, it would just be things like, hey, I'm walking without the assistance of machinery, right? Like I'm not in a wheelchair or whatever. I recognize that and I'm thankful for that. Next thing, right? Like my kids are both healthy today and are not hospitalized. I recognize that. I'm thankful for that. And just feels kind of robotic, right? But just whatever comes to mind, just say it, freestyle it, and kind of just go at it for a while, really, until you kind of feel like, I don't know, that little, I felt that little buzz of like, wow, this really has like turned my perspective around, because on my day I was focusing on like the two things that were really grinding my gears. And now going through that exercise has just felt like it's just tipped things a little bit more, where I almost feel like, yeah, those two things are kind of small. And going back to some of your points, right, about like, trying to be perfect or bulletproof or not let anything bother me. It just, I don't know, it seems to kind of restore some balance in my life. Do you have something like that that you practice or use to, kind of stay level?
Yeah, so the first thing that came to my mind is something that I used when I was having really, really bad anxiety attacks. They're much better now. I'm, well medicated and much better. But when I would have those, I would do it's called the 5 4 3 2 1 grounding technique,
Oh, okay.
and it's like not necessarily just for anxiety attacks either. Like I gave this to my kids and they would, as they're like going through puberty and having issues, or if you ever feel overwhelmed or anything like that, it's a really good, just very calming, basic thing to do. And so you focus on 5 things you can see. So you like actually stop and like pick out 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste.
Hmm.
And you just go through all of your 5 senses, and by the end of getting through all of those things, you just, like, take a minute and breathe.
Huh.
And that always helped me, and it helped them. It definitely helped my middle son as he was going through puberty and was having lots of issues with that. So, um,
That's awesome. Like,
yeah.
kind of like it ends up being a mini meditation, kind
Yeah.
of, right? With the idea just that you're sort of stilling yourself, right? And you're just like selecting a small group of things to focus on rather than let your mind just kind of
Right.
like, whoa, things are out of control. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because he's actually told a lot of his friends, uh, those kind of things because 'cause they'll, like, call him for advice and to vent and stuff, and that's the thing he uses.
Yeah. Super cool. Super cool. Well, thanks for everything, Amanda. Really, really appreciate it. And yeah, we're seeing some comments. People enjoyed it. I know. Yeah, this is appreciate you visiting this topic with us and look forward to it again.
Yeah.
Let me know when I'll want to, tweet about or whatever when the book comes out. That's
Yes.
super exciting.
So excited.
And we'll keep in touch and look forward to present on whatever's relevant, whatever comes up
Next
next
up,
time.
Amanda Life Coach.
Yes, on a yeah, that's right. I can see a dedicated Facebook page, coming
Yes.
up with you in a pose of just, hashtag
Yes.
blessed, hashtag winning, right? And
I
uh,
I, uh, actually have the Twitter account Mean Life Coach.
oh, do you? Oh my gosh, is it? Do you put like
'Cause
sarcastic things?
I used to, now I use it for, like, training and, like, hiding, CFP flags, uh,
Oh,
but,
okay, okay,
yeah, yeah, I, originally made it because I thought it would be funny instead of, like, a super positive, affirming life coach to just be like,
right.
"You need to get your shit together. You're definitely doing this wrong."
Exactly, yeah. If you think you can't, you probably can't, stuff like that. That would just
Right.
be such a nice, just like, just sort of relief, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again, Amanda. Have a great start to your year here, and look forward to the next whatever it is project
Yeah,
that we tackle together.
yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, thanks. Take care. You've been watching or listening to 7 Minute Security, a weekly podcast focused on pen testing, blue teaming, and building a career in security. For more episodes like this, visit 7ms.us. And for information about our consulting services, visit 7minsec.com.